right, so I have a drawing here of a landscape that I am going to begin to paint. Now my drawing is very light. I did not press too heavy, so it might be difficult to see a lot on the camera here, but I understand what I'm doing. So for like bushes and trees, I kind of just made a blob. My landscape here, I'm looking through two like French doors. So I have French doors in the foreground, moving back into space. I have a horizon line behind a little bench and then some bushes in the back. And you want to be thinking about a color scheme. So you can choose, monochromatic, complementary, or analogous. So if you look at my palette that I have poured, I'm going complement. So this painting is probably going to take me a long time. Having a plan of what you want to do with your color is a great idea. Even labeling colors, knowing where you want it to be. So if we're thinking of space and distance though, because that's part of the goal of this assignment, is if we think about atmospheric perspective, things in the background are a little lighter in tone than things in the foreground because we're looking through more of these spheres. It goes back. So if I want the background to be maybe a light orange, like it's a sunset, and then these trees can be more of a light blue. So I'm thinking lighter because they're in the back. And then as I move forward, I can move into like regular orange, regular blues, and then even more forward, I can move into more dark. So I think I'm going to spend some time and just really lightly label what colors I want where, so I have a plan when I begin to paint. So I know exactly what I need to do and I don't need to think about it in the middle of the project. I'm going to do all that right now. So I am going to start with my furthest away section of the painting. So that for me is the sky, and I know I want the sky to be a light orange. Again, I'm doing a complementary color palette. So to make a light orange, I'm going to take some white from my paint palette and some orange, and I'm going to set them side by side. I'm not going to mix them directly. Now, orange is a more powerful color than white, so I need to control how much orange I put into the white. Don't put white into the orange. It'll be wasteful. So take a little bit, swirl it into the white until you get the color that you want, and then I'm going to start painting, and I'm going to do my best to drag the brush and to treat the brush nicely and to stay inside my lines. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding some orange strokes into like the panels that you can see through my window, and in my head I kind of just wanted to do a little abstract color blocking there, so that's what I'm doing there. But you can see I have my sky painted and I'm ready to move on to the next layer after that is complete. Alright, next I've begun to paint some of the blue. I'm using a tint of blue, so blue and white, and I am painting in the trees that are the next layer up in my landscape. So I am going to be layering different versions of blue in here. I'm going to be using some light blue. It's some like darker blues with less white. So you'll see me layer that into these trees as I keep going with the painting here. So here I'm using a flat brush, and you can tell I just put in some regular blue and I'm layering in some more lighter versions of the blue, a tint, so more white. And I'm kind of letting them blend a little bit. So I'm layering and I'm dabbing with my brush, thinking like Bob Ross a little bit. A lot of little dab marks just to add some dimension to these trees so they don't look so flat. And next I'm using a detail brush to paint in my bench. So I am like moving through a bunch of different brushes as I work with this painting. I tend to do that as an artist. I like to have a variety of brushes so I can get into the proper shapes that I need to get into and do the effects that I desire. So this is so small, I need a tinier brush. I need to have more control over what I'm doing here. Okay, next I'm going to begin my little pathway here, and I know I wanted an orange pathway to keep with the complementary color scheme, and I'm using orange and moving into a shade of orange. So I'm mixing that orange with black, and I'm doing it while everything is wet so everything can blend nicely together. While it's wet, I am now bringing in a tint of orange, so orange and white, and I'm doing little dab marks, kind of like what I did in the trees, to add the texture of the stone on the path. And I'm leaving little pockets of the dark in between to show kind of like the grout lines. So that way I'm getting this really cool effect with my brush. I'm showing that texture, but I'm still managing to follow the right colors. Okay, next I am doing shades of blue, and I'm making these kind of bushes here. And so I mix the blue with the black, and I'm layering in some tints in there, again, just to provide dimension. But I want you to notice how I'm moving forward with the image. I am technically getting darker and darker and darker, even though the objects themselves have light and dark in them. Overall, everything's going to be moving darker as I get closer in the foreground. So here I am doing a little more of the highlight and shadow work. So I'm taking my round brush and I'm doing these really soft dabbing marks to really give a lot of texture to these bushes right here in the front. I'm thinking this looks really, really nice. This is also a good technique for like clouds if you want to do clouds in your piece. Okay, next I've decided that these last bushes in the front, I want them to be like taller, like they kind of have like blades of grass, really tall grass there. So I'm using a detail brush again. I'm adding in the white and doing more strokes that go upward in layers. After some detail work, I'm now ready to begin painting the doors in the foreground. I've added black to orange, which creates a brown type of color, so it's a shade of orange, and I am using that to paint in the doors. And that, again, it's darker than all the other oranges you see in the piece, so it's still following that atmospheric perspective of being dark in the front and lighter as you go back into space. Within these doors, I'm adding little moments of highlight and shadow as well, to add more 3 dimension to it, make it look like it actually lives in space with actual light and shadow. Next, I'm providing a little more texture into the stones. So you can see I have my detail brush, and I'm using that dark orange again, a shade of orange, to draw in that grout a little bit more clearly. And so the rest of my time here working on this painting is going back to any more details I think I need to add, anything I need to push further into the dark or into the light. Under this bench here, I know I need to create a little more shadow, so I'm going to work with that. So the rest is just touch-up work, and you make those decisions as the artist. So once everything has been tidied up, you are finished. And so here are 2 examples with a complementary color palette. Here's an example with an analogous color palette. This would be neighbors on the color wheel. And this is a monochromatic color palette where you do tints and shades of one color. And here is the artwork all complete.